agree that we should balance the budget, and we all agree that it has to have a solid supermajority to protect Congress from just ratcheting up the tax base. That's going to take time. It takes time to balance, to pass a constitutional amendment. What do we do day one when the Senate is Republican, when the House is Republican, and when the President is Republican? All of you have run to balance the budget now, not 10, 20 years from now. Senator?
Well, number one is assuming we don't get to the 60, which is where I'd rather be. If you're at 51, 52, and you have the Republicans we use reconciliation to repeal Obamacare.
All right.
That's number one. That is, and I told the president to this face-to-face, I said, this is going to bankrupt the country. We cannot, the expenses are going to explode. The benefits are questionable. If you do nothing else, that is going to help you on the right path. I think about half of our time ought to be used in oversight, in things that are being duplicated, areas of waste. Tom Coburn has worked closely on this to get us on that path to the balance. But you get rid of Obamacare, and we spend half of our time on oversight because then we can do those hearings. I think that takes you a long way. Ultimately, you need to have the big spenders,
right.
Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and work to get the.
Can you hear us now?
No. How's this?
Can you hear us now?
Okay. Well, the first thing, if we have 51 and less than 60 senators, is to use reconciliation to repeal Obamacare. It's a program that I believe is going to bankrupt the country. There's no way that the country maintains financial stability with the Obama health care law in place.
Can you hear me? Yes, good. All right. If I were president, this is going to shock you, but I'd pass the McPenny plan. Look,
that's a great idea.
Look, but I'm not, and I'm not going to be. But if we work together on day one, when we have a majority in the House and in the Senate and the presidency, we can begin to move forward on the McPenny plan and on a balanced budget amendment at the same time. And here's why that's important. A balanced budget amendment, which is where we all want to get to, we all know it's going to take time to get there. But let's move that immediately, get it into the process so we can begin to get to that balanced budget. You know, it has to get ratified by the states. I mean, there's a lot that goes to it. And in the meantime, at the same time, let's put forward the McPenny plan to cut 1% of spending for 6 years, to cap spending at 18% of GDP, to balance the budget in the 8th year, and to cut $7.5 trillion. We will do it in 8 years. We will do it together. And let me make sure everyone understands this one little fact. You'll hear out of Washington about a baseline budget, right? Everybody believes that a baseline budget is flat. In Washington, D.C., a baseline budget is an increase of spending every year by 5 to 8%. We can't afford it. We can't afford to borrow money from China and others to pay for this. So we have to flatline that baseline. We can no longer continue to spend 5 to 8% more every year, and then we cut 1%. This is a common sense solution. There is bipartisan support for this, and I think the reason is it makes sense. But Senator, as you know, we both know, sometimes we have to try all the things that we know isn't going to work before we get to the things that will work.
And the budget would be balanced by the time then that the balanced budget amendment kicks in.
Great answers. One question that I'd like to ask both of you, and Senator Barrasso, you already addressed this a little bit, is what type of balanced budget amendment matters? Because when I first got to this town in the 1980s, there was a very liberal senator named Paul Simon. He was a card-carrying progressive, and he had a balanced budget amendment. And I'm pretty sure that no one in this room would support his plan to balance the budget.
No, because it's an excuse to just raise taxes and do additional spending. And I believe the Democrats, at least those that I work with, are always looking for a way to expand the reach of government. As I tell people in Wyoming, you don't want to send them the money in Washington because they will just spend it. So we need to have a balanced budget amendment that ties spending to the size of of the economy. And the Republican, co-sponsored by all 47 Republicans in the Senate, is for an 18%. And then you can't, and then so the courts can't mandate additional spending. You then say you need 2/3 supermajorities to either go through it or to raise taxes, which really focuses on where the problem is today, which is the spending.
And by the way, if you guys don't understand this, the entire Senate Republican caucus supported a good BBA across the board. That's never been done before. I think that's quite an accomplishment.
It was tremendous work by Michael Lee and Orrin Hatch, both of Utah, and I'll tell you, our hats are off to both of them.
And I want to add some, so you keep hearing about 18% of GDP, and why is that number important? It's not, we didn't just pick that number. Historically, revenues in this country have been at 18% of GDP. So what does that mean to you? If you make X amount of dollars, you can't spend more than you make. So with the federal government, the reason we're at 18% is because that is what the revenue is historically to the federal government. I think it's an important reason. We just didn't pick a number out of the hat. If you want to balance the budget, you can't spend more than you bring in.
Okay, guys, give it up for Connie Mack, John Barrasso.
Thank you.